what's up, everybody? I'm Ted, and I've said that my New Year's resolution is to talk more publicly about the things I care about. Welcome to the podcast. I I think that when I travel, I always get stuck um with this thought. I think about when I experience what I think we generally call it pockets of excellence. When I experience pockets of excellence, traveling around the continent and you see some beautiful things, I always ask myself, like, um, where is this collective game shifting um innovation that we can truly own and call our own, right? The stuff that is truly shifting the world. And then I start to wonder, and sometimes it's through a murmur, sometimes it's through just, asking myself, but we should have achieved this by now, or we should have achieved that by now. We ought to have this by now. And so in today's episode, I want to talk about 10 things Africa should have achieved by now. And by now, if you're watching this, it's 2025. So 10 things um Africa should have achieved by 2025. And I can hear you asking, yeah, but on whose measure? How long are you measuring the time horizon? Um, I will confidently say 25 years. I think 25 years is enough for us to have achieved some of these 10 things. That's the first thing. The second thing is I want to define it, right? Because everything I probably mentioned, someone's going to say, hey, Tony is working on it in Lagos. Jimmy is working on it in Accra. No, I'm talking about this criteria. And this criteria is essentially um, universal adoption, okay? And universal adoption beyond the continent. That's the first. The second thing is unquestionable origins, right? You know it's African, it's proudly African, and people use it without a second thought. And then the third is the people outside that particular area of expertise know about it. It's like a utility. You don't have to know the technicalities, the ins and outs, how it works, but you know about it. Okay, so walk with me. We're going to do 10 things that Africa should have achieved by now. And we're going on descending order. And in all of these things, I want to highlight a couple things. I will list the thing. I will mention what it is. I'll mention the benefits, why I think we haven't achieved it, solutions, and then to satisfy the so Jimmy's working on it in Lagos, is what comes close, right? So what comes close to it? All right, numéro 10. Where's our Disney, right? Where's our Disney? The missing global African media giant. And what I'm talking about is a globally recognized media conglomerate, similar to a Paramount. I've had the privilege of working at Paramount. It was Viacom International Media Networks, so Paramount, Disney, CNN, that broadcast news, entertainment, cultural content worldwide, and then just shaping the narratives about Africa by Africans, right? So that's what it is. The benefit of having that is, one, global influence. I think it provides us with a major platform. Number two is to counter negative stereotypes. It's always critical that Africans tell African stories. And it also corrects these one-sided depictions of Africa on international media and on the international stage. And then economic growth. I think a large media company has a really strong multiplier effect. And so I think that that's a critical element to these benefits. It attracts advertising revenue, it creates jobs, you foster local filmmaking, you foster talent, you foster music, and you develop these amazing entertainment industries as a result of that. Why have we not achieved it? Um, I think We have fragmented markets. It's the thing about Africa and the 54 countries. Um, Fragmented market is the first thing. Audiences are split by language. We split by culture, and whatever our regional affiliations. You also have funding and the scaling problem. So building a global media giant requires massive investment, both infrastructure and from a content creation point of view. I think you also have regulatory hurdles. Different countries have varying broadcast standards, making cross-border expansion quite difficult. And then I think you have a licensing issue, which is a real thing when it comes to just content distribution, different platforms, and then making the content flow across all regions. And then third, I personally don't think our executives are aggressive when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, right? Um, what's the solution? I think Pan-African collaboration is critical. You have to go digital. You can't do it on legacy infrastructure. It doesn't work. It won't work. It's way too expensive. And then syndication and partnerships, expertise, um, and I think that's how you sort of execute on that. What or who comes close? I think that's an obvious one. It's take a guess. Okay, it's multi-choice. Multi-choice DSTV in South Africa comes close. And I think it's a really strong regional powerhouse. I think Nollywood is. I don't think Nollywood is a single entity, but as a brand, I think it's pretty strong, and some work needs to be done there. But I don't think anyone has achieved global scale in the way that I've defined. All right. Number nine. Number nine. I named this as. I don't think we've removed the business bottleneck. Okay, red tape and the ease of doing business on this continent. Um, as someone who does and believes in doing a lot more business on this continent, that is, it's a very tricky issue for entrepreneurs, resourced and unresourced. Um, so what it is, I think, a simplified regulatory and administrative environment doesn't exist across the continent. There are these World Bank indicators on the ease of doing business. I won't even put up that chart because a lot of our countries do not feature on there. How quick it is to open a business, how quick it is to get licenses, electricity, overcome regulation, etc. We're still way too complex for us to have clear frameworks, etc. The benefits of achieving this is entrepreneurial growth, without question. It lowers the barrier to entry for businesses and for entrepreneurs. It encourages startups, innovations, and job creation. The second benefit to achieving this is foreign direct investment. In a later episode, I'll talk about Africa's leaky bucket issue. We struggle to maintain, the flow of currency on this continent. And so, fixing the bottleneck issue attracts investment. And then three, economic diversification. The more, uh, the more we lower the barrier to entry, it's easier to establish new ventures. Economies of scale become achievable. We're less reliant on our commodity sectors, and we can build a more diversified, sort of block from a business point of view. Why haven't we achieved it? I think it's self-explanatory. Complex regulation, policy inconsistencies. I think we do. We have the African Union, but I think there's great paperwork that's being done. Few of it translates, and I think anyone who's screwed up is gonna put the Africa Free Trade Zone agreement, etc. I don't think that stuff has hit the average entrepreneur who's trying to figure out, okay, how do I build a business or launch on this continent? And I think that's problematic. And then we have an infrastructure gap. That's why we haven't achieved it. We have poor digital infrastructure, which can slow down administration. If someone loses your form in a department, you're on your own. And then just online registrations, our systems are cumbersome, and they're not connected, right? So your tax system is not connected to the company registration system, is not connected to the banking system, is not connected to your home affairs, it's not connected to your export license, on and on and on it goes. Solutions. I think that again, it's going to take. And as I'm mentioning all these ideas, I want to be a part of the generation that one believes this is possible, and two enables some of these things to become possible. One-stop digital portal for this. I think that standardizing, how we define entrepreneurship and business registration is absolutely critical. Transparent governance without politicizing anything. You need that in order to work, because governments create and run the systems. Then you need public-private dialogues, and you have to encourage the regulator to take feedback from entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs to understand the complexities that exist within that space. And then just easy tax filings. I think that most entrepreneurs would understand, you know, and succeed if they understood how, if there was a way to make it really easy to be tax compliant, in many markets that you operate in. What currently comes close? Um, I haven't seen. I think that on the margin there are a few markets that do this well. There are some green shoots, but holistically, I don't think we're there just yet. And the World Bank rankings lets me know that. When you have, and if you filter through it, you'll see North Africa um, and Sub-Saharan Africa. I think there are a few countries, Morocco, maybe Algeria, I saw feature there. The rest were sort of some of these Arab nations as well. Number eight, tech hubs to rival the world's best. I don't think we've achieved that just yet. And what it is tech ecosystems with global recognition, featuring cutting edge research labs, startup accelerators, robust venture capital networks, and a steady pipeline of global talent. This sort of thing attracts not just young people, but it attracts people who believe in investing in young people. There is no doubt that the benefits to this is um, innovation and job creation. It makes us globally competitive. So global competitiveness is an important piece here. It puts African cities on the map, making an African city the go-to place, um, like some Indian cities are for software development, or some Eastern European cities are for software development, is absolutely critical. You've got Silicon Valley that is responsible for perhaps one of the greatest tech wealth creations in the history of the world. Why we haven't achieved it? It's pretty simple. Maybe not, but funding scarcity is a big thing. We've got very limited venture capital and angel investors, and those networks, if they are not extensive, will hinder startups from scaling, getting bigger, attracting funding, etc. Talent and education gaps. I think the shortage of skilled developers, engineers, and researchers can stall innovation. And then infrastructure challenges. I think unreliable electricity, expensive internet, slow productivity, and increasing costs are a barrier, and why I think we haven't achieved it. What are the solutions? I think we need to create um, what I think are, sort of these innovation districts or blocks. So innovation districts and blocks, in multiple cities. And once you create those blocks, you connect those blocks so that they have a ways of working. And one of the things we don't do well on this continent is collaborate better. And you can leverage talent from Nairobi or Kenya, from Lagos, from South Africa, from Ghana, and create an ecosystem that supports that and positions us to the world as a leader in tech development, because we sure have the youth to do it. We just need to create that pipeline of talent to do it. The second thing is local and global partnerships. It talks to the point around FDI, or foreign direct investment. Once you have this ecosystem, you can then create relationships between local VCs and international VCs, who sort of raise these funds. They VCs raise funds from a fund of funds, and all sorts of things. Once there's a credible ecosystem where the VCs can see an exit, and they can see a return on their investment, makes us a lot more attractive. I think the other solution is, for want of a better word, that there has to be this grassroots stimulation of talent, particularly around STEM, science, technology, um, engineering, and mathematics. Those have to become parts and parcel of the fiber of our education system. And I think that some of the legacy stuff um, needs to we just need to do away with it, and focus on some of this, in order to invest in coding academies, advanced tech training, scholarships, and programs for the youth, etc. I think that's a critical balance. What comes close? I think there are many sort of, and this is when I was talking about the pockets of excellence. I think Cape Town has a really good tech scene. Um, there's a great tech scene in Lagos. I don't know if it's Yaba district. Uh, Kenya, I think Nairobi has Silicon Savannah, and all of those again speak to, we're doing things in isolation. We need to bring it together. All right. So number 8, um, tech hubs to rival the world's best. Number 7 is something I'm touched by very often. Every time I travel, this thought pops up, and it is the elusive digital visa system. I cannot for the life of me understand why I still have to leave my passport at an embassy. I think we should be way beyond that. I think we collectively need to adopt a digital visa system. It makes it easier on travelers, et cetera, et cetera. So what it is, defined as a seamless continent-wide e-visa digital travel authorization platform that simplifies cross-border movement for tourists, business travelers, and students within Africa. The benefits are quite, I think, staggering. It's going to be a boost to tourism and trade. It eases movement for potential travelers and investors. It increases spending and economic exchange. Number 2 is increased security. Digital systems can be more secure and trackable, reducing fraud and illegal entries. Streamlined administration, cut down on the bureaucratic paperwork and long queues at embassies and borders. That's a critical one. Why we haven't achieved it? I think there's a coordination complexity that we just haven't cracked yet. Aligning, different immigration laws, security protocols, databases, and then just getting that right across dozens of countries is, I recognize that it's just not easy. But if there's political will to get this done, it's something that would be exceptionally beneficial. Tech infrastructure is lacking, sort of complementary to the coordination problem. But we have what what you might term inconsistent digital readiness, and so certain markets are more advanced than the others. Certain consumers or travelers have more access to digital services than others, so it may not be possible to do that. But again, that's what makes this a great feat once it's achieved. And then you can't be naive to it. I think there are political sensitivities around this as well, concerns over sovereignty, data sharing, and then national security. But again, if we are to give teeth to any of these institutions, these are some of the things that I think should be possible. What are the solutions? And I think some of them are happening already. Regional pilots. I think start with a small group of countries, either within either south, west, or east, the eastern blocks, and see how that pilot goes. Take the lessons from there, benchmark, and then create something the continent can adopt. Standardized tech platforms. There's a thing in technology called interoperability, and if you're able to get that right, it just means that different systems can operate collectively, and I think that is critical as far as unified data standards, border control, etc., etc. And then lastly, solutions is just around capacity building. You need a lot of training, you need a lot of funding, because the disruption to the existing ecosystem in order to get this right is quite significant. From your border patrol to your authorities, and then just those digital solutions. What comes close? I think there's an initiative called the Africa e-Visa Initiative, where some countries are participating, but again, it's not, it's not in front of you, and it's not something we all live through. All right. So number 7 was the elusive digital visa system. All right. Let's go to number 6. Number 6 is something super emotive. We've had protests about this. We've had long conversations about why this is the case. Number 6 is the data dilemma, Africa's high mobile data costs. And I think it's something to shake your head to as to why we're still here. And what it is, I think, an ongoing challenge, where the price of internet data bundles remains prohibitively expensive. I wanted to nail that because the prohibitively expensive piece is what blocks all the enablers from a lot of these things that we need to achieve in order to become successful. What are the benefits? Digital inclusion. The more you drop these barriers, the more people you can include within these digital ecosystems. Affordable data empowers people in rural and urban areas alike to engage in e-learning, e-commerce, online services, etc., etc. The next benefit is business growth, lower data costs, mean, again, more consumers can access more digital products, and more platforms. It ultimately it makes the continent a smaller place, and I think that's critical. And then the other benefit is socio-economic development, education, healthcare, civic engagement. They all improve when internet access is widespread, but critically, it's widespread and affordable. Those two have to complement each other. Why haven't we achieved it? I as much as we have the amount of telcos we have, I think there's limited competition. In many markets, it's generally a 2 to 3 horse race, and that's easy to sort of control. The second is infrastructure investment, and then the third is regulatory policies. I think those are the biggest stumbling blocks. The solutions would be around infrastructure sharing. Again, easier said than done. I want to recognize that. Pro-competition policies, and then public-private subsidies. They will always have to be this collaboration piece. And I guess what we ultimately need to avoid is, we're going to get Starlink, and we'd have to see what the impact is on the local players who've maintained prices at a particular level, right? So you'd rather, we always say this, you'd rather put yourself out of business than let someone else do it. And I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later. Not put you guys out of business. These prices need to fall. Okay, lest I'm misquoted and someone comes to find me somewhere. Um, and then what comes close? I think some countries might be piloting this, but again, I don't think we've collectively hit this successfully. Okay, so number six, data dilemma: Africa's high mobile data costs. All right, um, number five. Number five. If you've been to Europe, you may have experienced this. Number five is the missing transcontinental train. You can't see this continent on a train. It's one of life's greatest experiences. And I don't even think it has to be the most luxurious train. It's just you cannot get around on this continent on a train. And what I'm talking about is a train network that crosses multiple African borders, for example, from Southern Africa to Northwest and East. And then it just provides a really great travel experience. And so the benefits are, I mean, very simply at a very elementary level, the tourism boost that comes from this is, I think, is unmatched. High-end rail travel, I think, attracts affluent tourists from around the world. It also gives Africans the opportunity, affluent or not, by the way, to just see the continent, to get exposed, mingle with other cultures, and that's a valuable piece to have. The other benefit is you showcase African diversity. Um, Passengers explore the continent, see the landscapes, the historical sites, the comforts, and then finally job creation. The hospitality industry is vital to the success of our economies, and this sort of stuff really works. Not only do you then go into that, but you also go into the maintenance crews, supporting the business benefit of having this infrastructure investment from increased demand is manufacturing, support services, etc., etc. Why we haven't achieved it? Rail infrastructure gaps are quite inconsistent. They're outdated. Most times we drive over these tracks, and there's limited connectivity across borders. There's a high capital cost of getting this done. Be it a luxury train or not, it requires substantial investment, rolling stock, stations, um, passenger amenities, and so you must have thought about this whole ecosystem in order to get it right. Um, Solutions will always be the collaboration is critical. So public private collaboration, incremental route expansion. I think you don't have to build this entire network at once. It can be incremental. Sort of you start with shorter, well maintained lines through regions, and then you expand transcontinentally and then increase those routes as the infrastructure improves. And then the other solution is marketing and branding. Position this as a very iconic experience in order to attract, premium pricing, global travelers, sponsorship, etc., etc. What currently comes close, because they exist, I think Rovos Rail and the Blue Train in South Africa offer these luxury rail experiences, but they're limited. They're limited to Southern Africa, and they don't span the entire continent. Okay. All right. So that was number five. Number five was the missing transcontinental train. And number four, um, I'm gonna call this sort of the unfinished highway, a drive from Cape Town to Cairo. We've got this really great thought about driving from Cape to Cairo. When you look at the distance, I think it's circa 9,800 to 10,200 kilometers by road. You cross 12 African countries, and you're referring to a high standard road that's linking Cape Town to Cairo, and enabling people to travel safe through a convenient road, paying tolls, and experiencing multiple countries without the security concerns. And That's where it is. Is it technically possible to drive from Cape Town to Cairo? It absolutely is. Is it technically possible for the average person to do that? No, it's not. Right. So you need specialist vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. The benefits, Pan-African mobility. Again, similar to the previous point, infrastructure development, um, you know, and that is complex on its own, and then continental identity as well. Why haven't we achieved it? Fragmented road networks, funding and political will, I think, are also a big challenge, and then security and border checks. Okay. The solution to this is I reckon that you could go through a sort of regional, again, like you would with the previous selection, you'd sort of create this corridor program. You combine road upgrades and, see how you collaborate financially, and then you do a phased construction of this. W- Um, what comes close, and I think it is happening because I read about that there are portions of the Trans-African Highway, I believe, which are going to introduce the planned, Cape Town to Cairo highway. And so, may that soon come to life. And so, yeah, number four, the unfinished highway, a drive from Cape Town to Cairo. Number three, um, this is probably the most ubiquitous item used on Earth, and yet we do not own one. Um, I am going to call number three the unphoned market. Um, why Africa still hasn't developed um, its own flagship mobile device. If you know one, please hit me up and let me know. But I don't know. And what it is a homegrown African smartphone or mobile device or brand that's fully designed. And these are critical aspects of it. And when I said we have to own every aspect of it, is it's fully designed, it's fully engineered, and it's manufactured on the continent. And then it's distributed. And you compete with the likes of global giants like Apple and Samsung. The benefits to this is local manufacturing and jobs. That's just bullseye. The second thing is tailored products. Um, a lot of these devices end up creating ecosystems. I mean, just look at Apple. We've been receiving the same Apple phone, but that ecosystem is absolutely devastating from a not just from a data standpoint, but from a services standpoint. So that's critical. And then the export potential. So one of the criteria I mentioned was that it has to be successful outside of our continent, and I don't think we have that. Why we haven't achieved that? I think we haven't figured out how to do what China does really well, and that is, um, you know, create successful supply chains. Um, I think there's a lot of global competition. It might be too late to get it successful to this level, I think. And then fragmented markets, different import duties, regulations, consumer preferences across African countries. But again, that we need for want of a better word, we need the African Union. We need the unity of Africa, and the collaboration is critical. Solutions. Personally, I think it's quite late to compete in this segment of consumer tech. But if anyone gets behind it and does it successfully, it will be a pleasant surprise. Uh, we need regional collaboration. I think we need government incentives. In future, I'll talk about how government must invest in critical businesses that will move the continent forward. And again, invest in STEM research and development. What comes close? Nah, we ain't got. We don't. We're not there. We're not there. And I know there might be a Chris who's doing it in Luanda, but no, we're just not there as far as the criteria is concerned. Um, Number two, again, something that is extremely ubiquitous. It's just we use it every day to go everywhere. Number two is the unbuilt auto. Why Africa still hasn't developed or hasn't made its own car. We we, we don't we don't have a proudly African car. We just don't. And I don't know why. What it is, in my view, is a fully African mobile brand. Um, same as the device. It's engineered, it's designed, it's manufactured, it's exported from the continent, for both domestic and global markets. The benefits, industrial and skill development, it really comes at that. I think the market potential is immense. I think growing middle class in Africa would benefit greatly from that. There'd be an immense continental pride that comes with this. If we own, if we drive and own a vehicle that's produced here, it is safe, and then obviously the cost of this item is lower. Would be, in fact, you would hope it's lower than the average. Um, or the international imports, and that's hoping that you've designed a beautiful vehicle people will be proud of, and happy to drive everywhere, right? Why haven't we achieved it? I think it's a very, very capital intensive industry. We've got fragmented regulation and markets, and then it's also one of those things where I think the national pride might overcome this, but it might be too late to decide to consume or compete in this segment. If you look at what China is doing with BYD, they are already firmly, positioning themselves across the continent. Um, I saw you and I were talking about solar vehicles just now. BYD are, electric vehicle manufacturers, and in Zambia, when they set up, the question was people were asking about, but where are we going to charge all these vehicles? And that was the problem. But you need to solve that as you go. Solutions, I think joint ventures are critical. You need the Africa collaboration to come to life. You need a lot of policy support, temporary tariffs, in order to drive the exports, the continental exports. You need a relaxation of tariffs in order to grow and nurture what this would be as a nascent product in the market. And then just regional standardization. We don't all drive on the left or the right. And so you'd have to do a lot of technical work around that. Um, to your point, Teddy, a few things came close, but none of them, again, are what you and I would have Googled or hit a global scale. I think I heard of Kantanka in Ghana. I heard of Kira Motors in Uganda, Mobius Motors in Kenya. I think they've showcased prototypes, or limited production runs, but nothing has reached widespread continental adoption, of full scale global presence. I don't.
The competitor, the guys that own that industry, won't just let anyone walk into those,
Yeah,
especially in Africa.
yeah, yeah. The barrier to entry is exceptionally high, to get that right. Um, all right. So number two, the unbuilt motor, or the unbuilt auto. Why Africa still hasn't made its own car. And here's number one. In some way, shape, or form, we should have had a space program. We should be sending rockets into orbit. We should be having satellite internet proliferating by the minute, by the day, by the month, by the year. And I just don't think we've hit that. And I think it's about a fully realized space initiative, capable of designing. Again, it's all done here. We've designed it here, we've manufactured it here, we've engineered it here, and we're executing here. Um, we have significant benefits from this. The benefits would be science, and tech advancements, satellite services, access to digital internet, or satellite internet rather, and then just the global prestige that comes with it. It puts African nations on the map, in the space sector. It fosters a lot of pride, and I think it also invites international collaboration. Why we haven't achieved it, I think there are a myriad of reasons, but it is extremely expensive. Like there's an extremely high cost to getting this right. The rockets, launch sites, satellite building, labs, and all of that requires a colossal investment. We have limited infrastructure. If we're not going to be able to execute on electric vehicles, this problem is 100x that, right? But I think our ambitions need to start to move towards this. And then just the collaboration hurdles again, coordinating multiple countries. One, to think that firstly, this is even possible. And then to start getting the expertise. Again, I talk about when you see the African excellence and you see the African exceptionalism, we're just unable to get it in the same pot to boil and come up with that magic. What are some solutions? Because I want to be solutions oriented. I actually don't know, but if I share a thought, I think you need a Pan-African sort of a Pan-African space agency that will pool the resources, that shares the research, that has a centralized mission. um, again, you need someone to lead it, but you need everyone else to collaborate, and I think that's important. The second thing is tapping into global networks, and working with established sort of uh, shall I say, space going nations, and getting a sense of how well this is done or how this should be done well. Private companies for technology transfer, and then just what we call co-launch activities. The other solution is STEM. We need to fundamentally etch this into our system, into our program, into our education. Science, technology, engineering, and math are what are really going to move us forward as far as taking these big strides um, is concerned. What comes close?
About
Um,
us.
what comes close? I guess is that the wealthiest man is inherently an African. Um, I also I think that South Africa, Nigeria, and possibly Egypt have launched satellites. And I think I read about Ethiopia having a space observatory. Some a lot, I need to make sure that I see that. And then the African Union is establishing an African space agency, laying the groundwork for what would be global cooperation. Um, that's your top 10. That's your top 10 of what Africa should have achieved by now. It's the year 2025. And again, how do we succeed? Winners win. We have to become anti-fragile. We have to believe that there's a generation of leaders, of entrepreneurs, of policymakers that will collaborate to make a lot of these things happen, be it a naive dream or not. These are critical things that I think we can do and we can achieve. Thank you for watching the episode. I'll see you guys next time.